Without pain, we might use God, reduce God, confuse God, and even lose God. That's the message I want to share with those of you this week who aren't so sure about Christianity or religion or the Bible or Jesus. I know sometimes we're stumped and maybe put off by the fact that God knows about the coronavirus. He controls the coronavirus, and He supposedly loves everyone who's suffering through the coronavirus, and that can rattle our faith, or maybe make us not have faith at all. But today I want to talk to you about that second main point, that without pain, we might confuse God. We might forget what Jesus is actually like, what Jesus actually did. It makes me think of a t-shirt that Britney Spears wore when I was in high school. That has to be the weirdest transition in a video devotion ever. So I went to high school in the late 90s when the boy bands were everything. These were the days of Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. And if my college roommate says I had a 98 Degrees poster on the wall, you shouldn't trust him, even if he's telling you the truth about that. I remember I started dating my wife Kim my freshman year of college, and we loved pop music. I'm sorry if that puts you off. We listened to Britney Spears and JT. I remember when they went to the Video Music Awards as a couple in matching denim outfits. It was an amazing time. But I want to tell you today about Britney Spears' t-shirt. Around those years, I remember her wearing this really popular t-shirt that had this sketch of Jesus, and it said, "Jesus is my homeboy." And I remember reading that thinking, I think she's confused Jesus. Is Jesus approachable? Is he the friend of real people, real sinners? Is he our big brother for those who are in the family of faith? Absolutely. But to call him just a homeboy, I don't know if you get Jesus. Do you know what makes you really get Jesus? Not some pop culture t-shirt, but pain. When you suffer pain, you can understand the real Jesus better, perhaps, than you ever have before. A couple weeks ago, one of the other pastors at our church made this incredible analogy. He said that one time he had food poisoning, and he was so sick, he honestly thought he was going to die. And he asked us the question as we were listening. He said, "Do you know what my wife was feeling during those tragic days?" "I have no clue either," he said, "because I was just thinking about me." In the midst of his pain, he had forgotten about everyone else, what they wanted, what they needed, how they were feeling. He just thought about himself, but not Jesus. When we suffer and go through pain, we ask these questions and we think about their effect on us. But when Jesus suffered pain, it wasn't about him. It was about you. I love this passage from the Apostle Paul, a Christian in the first century who went through tons of pain. He said this in Philippians chapter 3. "I want to know Christ." I don't want to get him confused. I want to know him. Yes, to know the power of his resurrection and participation in his sufferings. You get that? Paul said, if I could participate in Jesus' sufferings, if I could go through pain, I could know him. I could understand the depth of his selfless love. Why would he choose the cross? Why would he come down to earth? I could never grasp that until I am in such pain that I just want to escape it. And then I realized that Jesus chose it. You know, the coronavirus has made me think of just how painful it must be to be infected. When it's difficult to breathe, when you're on a ventilator. But you know what that sounds like? The cross. You might not know this, that people didn't die on crosses because of the loss of blood and the nails in their hands and feet. They died on crosses because they couldn't breathe. The weight of their own body hanging from the nails would start to collapse their lungs, and the only way to breathe was to pull themselves up on those nails and nerves. It was death by suffocation. It was a lack of oxygen. That's what killed Jesus. And when we read about these tragic stories of how terrible it must be to have the coronavirus, to die that way, we think about the Jesus who didn't get infected by accident. It was his intention to die a painful death on the cross so that you and I would know that there is a God who is so loving and so good and so selfless. A God, yes, who knew about the cross and he had the power to escape the cross, but because he loved humanity so much, he chose not to. He went through it. And if that's the purpose, that we can stop thinking of Jesus as our homeboy, but as our hero, as our Savior, maybe this would all be worth it. Without pain, we would confuse God. But in the midst of suffering, like Paul realized, we can know God, appreciate God, yes, even worship God. I'm just a guy, but maybe that is one of God's many purposes for this pain. I hope that draws you closer to Jesus, and I can't wait to tell you more as we talk tomorrow. I realize that today's message doesn't answer every question that you might have. Whether you're not so sure about Christianity or you are a committed Christian, it's so important for us to take the next step. And I'd love for you to do just that. Is there a person you could text today, email, call, reach out to continue the conversation? I'd love for you to talk about this devotion and see if you can become more convinced that there is a God of power and a God of love, a God who loves even us. Thanks for taking that next step, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. If these messages are a blessing to you and your faith and you want more, we'd love to make it easy for you. You can just click this button right here to get connection to a YouTube subscription. Or if you want these devotions right into your inbox, you can click right here. YouTube here, email here. Email here, YouTube there. Click both these buttons. We'll give you as much Jesus as we can because we know that Jesus is all that we need.